And we are live for episode 209 of Trek Live. How you doing this morning, Dan?
Doing good. Hoping for the best for the internet issues to subside. That's why I'm at a different location, but hopefully this sounds better, looks better throughout the whole show. So,
Yeah, we had some
looking
issues
forward
last
to talking
week.
some Lower Decks.
Definitely. Very excited to talk Lower Decks. We had some issues with the internet on your end. I've had my share of internet issues over the years for sure. But last week you had some challenges because of the nature of last week's episode. We could kind of keep going. It didn't really affect us too much, but because of this episode being a fantasy draft, if we start having real connection issues, and we'll probably bag it and maybe try it again down the road. But hoping for the best. Fingers are crossed. Hoping that doesn't come to that. But figured to throw that out there for those of you who might be checking us out live this morning here. But yeah, our topic today is we're going to do a Lower Decks fantasy draft. Lower Decks comes back on Thursday, so we're right on the cusp of new Star Trek being a weekly thing again, at least for a bit. And we haven't really talked about Lower Decks too much on the main show. We've done course heading discussions of a lot of the Lower Decks episodes, specifically back last year through season 2. We were definitely doing that weekly. But here on the main show, we really haven't touched on it much at all. We've done a couple topics that are like broadly about some of the new stuff that we might touch on. A little bit of Lower Decks, but we haven't done the Lower Deck specific conversation here, so really excited to do that. And I feel like this is a cool. We have enough episodes, I think, to do a fantasy draft, and can kind of divide it into enough where it's feasible to do it. So pretty pumped. But
Yeah,
yeah, go
because
ahead.
we got 20 episodes, right?
20
And
episodes.
usually when we do a season, it's 25, 26, 27 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So it should be kind of right in that sweet spot of
Yeah,
I guess we're gonna go. How many rounds are we gonna go, Bill?
we're gonna go 7 rounds, which is as close to dividing it into thirds as we can get. We like to try to have a fairly equal amount of episodes each of us, and then have an undrafted portion as well. So we'll have 7 each, and then there will be 8 left over, or 6 left over to get us to 20. So
Yeah.
when it's all said and done, we'll have 3 stacks of episodes to look at, and it's always a good time. Looking forward to it. But before we get into the topic of the day, now that we both have rewatches, and we're pretty close still, I might be a couple episodes ahead of you. Um, the episode last week, we talked a lot about kicking that off and our process and our first kind of day of doing it. And we talked about the Man Trap through The Enemy Within, the first 5 episodes, TOS season 1. Um, where are you now, and how's it going?
So I watched. Let's see. Trying to think how many. So I think the last time we left off, maybe. Can't even remember what. I think last time we left off was what our little girl's made of. I think maybe I'm not sure. But I did watch Miri, Dagger of the Mind, the Corbomite Maneuver, and the Menagerie.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely still chugging along on TOS this week. Bill is a little bit ahead of me, but it's nice to be able to be going through this with another person. And I don't have an update on my rankings because I ran out of time, so I was doing other graphical stuff for the show this morning. But I'll hopefully tweet that out today with an updated list. But it's going good. I'm really enjoying it. It's this run kind of is again just as tough, I think, as the first 5 as what I stated before, but it's been good. It's been really good. I think there's been some really good ones. I think there's been some middle of the road ones. So yeah, it's good batch of good sample size of TOS that you get some of the not so good stuff and then some of the good stuff.
Yeah.
Like the Menagerie, which I really enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
This week, because what Discovery and Stranger Worlds have done to that episode and to that character, it just brings back such a different perspective. Like the way Spock reacts, you kind of get it now. Before you kind of thought, okay, this is just, there was no weight behind what he was doing. Like his loyalty was just, I know he served with him for, I don't know, he said it in the episode, like 7 years or something like that. But it just changes my perspective on how Spock reacts in that situation. So I get it now.
Yeah. No, totally. I think that's a huge enhancement to Menagerie. When Menagerie begins and Spock, right at the end of the cold open, kind of tips off that he's about to take some drastic measures on Pike's behalf. You kind of have to go sight unseen. Like, why does he have this, tremendous sense of loyalty for this captain that we haven't totally seen him serve with? If you've seen The Cage, you've seen an episode of that. But there's certainly not a ton of context, and it's on Nimoy to kind of sell that history, and he does. That episode's been great for a long time, but having the added context of Strange New Worlds and what we get in Discovery too definitely adds a lot of ammo to that episode's emotional punch. I think there's a lot more power to Spock's decisions. It adds a lot to that. I totally agree with everything you said too about it kind of being some middle of the road stuff, some great stuff. I remember I was on Trek Ranks years ago, and one of the topics I did was runs of 5 episodes, best runs of 5 episodes, and pretty sure the number one pick I had for that episode was the Corbomite maneuver through Balance of Terror. So you're right in the middle of that. I said on Twitter, I think the Corbomite maneuver is like Star Trek in a box. Like if you needed an episode to show somebody like what is Star Trek in one single outing, it's kind of the Corbomite maneuver. It's exploring the deepest trenches of space, coming across something that you don't get and have never seen before, and unraveling that mystery.
Perspective on big bad aliens.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. Different characters are responding to it differently. You have green people, like green crewmen who are not used to this kind of pressure, trying to battle through, and the scenes between Kirk and McCoy about how to handle the crew and how to handle Bailey's inexperience. It's so casual, and it really
get a drink. It's just
yeah.
It's so good.
It really reminds me of one of my favorite movies is Master and Commander, and with Russell Crowe, and that to me always, I've said before, that's like a Star Trek movie without the Star Trek, and a lot of it is because like Star Trek was based on that kind of stuff, like novels of that time and what life on those ships was like. And in Master and Commander, the captain would go off to his cabin with the ship's surgeon, who's a little outside the chain of command and is kind of the captain's closest confidant, and would talk about these kinds of things, like who to promote and who's ready for this kind of duty. And and the one person who could kind of speak truth to the captain unfiltered was the surgeon. And McCoy and Kirk's dynamic in the Corbomite maneuver especially is totally that, and I love it. And there's twists in it, and I love the kind of pivot from it's chess and we're checkmated to it's poker and I have a bluff up my sleeve. That's just great stuff. I just love the writing of that.
Yeah.
And, one of my favorites. And then the Menagerie and everything that does for establishing Star Trek as something that is interested in world building, and that there's a history here, and that these ships have lineage and people who have served on them before with different crews and different captains, and that there's a bigger picture here than just, even though it's an episodic show, TOS, it's already establishing that this is a whole world here, and that there's a bigger story to reckon with, and that's just getting better and better with age. And of course, Balance of Terror is, the classic for all time, and even the Conscience of the King is like the least of those 5 for sure, but that has a ton of Kirk backstory in it, and it introduces a lot of the kind of hallmarks of Kirk's character. I think he gets obsessed from time to time, and he can be a little single minded, and he needs people to rein him in, and he needs Spock and McCoy to kind of be the other pieces of that puzzle. And I really like the Conscience of the King, so I'm really digging it. I feel like when I watch TOS like this, when I hit that run of 5, that's when I'm like completely in the flow of it. It feels like I've kind of hit a stride. So really enjoying that. One thing I'm going to do real quick, like 2 minutes, as a sort of diversion. I've talked about it on Twitter a couple times. I'm going to flex a little bit on my OMS skills and go to a little. I shared publicly for the first time the spreadsheet that I use to track my rewatch stuff. And I figured on here I can kind of show it for a quick second. If you haven't seen this yet, you can go to my Twitter feed, and in my bio there's a kind of permanent link now where it's like a OneDrive link. So if you click it, it's going to take you to the live version of what I have, and it's basically an episode guide. I put my grade in as I go, the date I watched it, and then on top of that, there's a tab here for my rankings currently. So if you're curious, you want to see kind of where I am, if you're following along and you're interested, you can kind of see this as I go. All of my 3.0 stuff, the previous rewatch with all of that data is here. Grades, this spreadsheet that I've shared before, where it gives like season averages and series averages and different data points. And on top of all of that, over here to the right, these poll tabs are the data from the individual episode polls that I'm running as well, that I'm into TNG for at this point. So if you're curious about that stuff, if you like that, if you're following along with that whole series, every poll result is here that tabulates the average that I use. That same spreadsheet that kind of gives average for the season and for the series is here. There's different data points like how many episodes in each show have averaged a 3.5 or higher, a 3 or higher. All that's here. And then this is the rankings for that series. So this is kind of like the crowdsourced pollster data for like the general people that are voting. How does that stack these episodes? And I'm hoping that all this stuff kind of becomes like comparative data as I go through. I'll have my rankings, I'll have your rankings, I'll have the Twitter rankings. We obviously have Trek Ranks out there that does the same thing. We'll have different kind of data points that we can look at to see what things are in common, where the differences are, and on a season by season basis as a whole, all that stuff will be here. And I've done it. I've had the spreadsheet for years and years and years. I've never made it like public through OneDrive or Google Docs, anything like that until now. So I figured take a couple minutes, show people what it looks like and how to get to it if you're interested. It's a view only, but you can copy things and put it into your own stuff if you want to use any of this as a starting point for your own stuff. If you like this sort of thing, it's all there. So that's that for that. What was that? It looked like you were.
I do my best to look at the rankings after the fact, after I've solidified mine. But it is a great resource of a bunch of data and a bunch of rankings, so I definitely recommend checking that out. So
yeah. Okay, so I think we're gonna pivot right into, at this point, the draft board here. We have to flip a coin, which I have handy on my phone. I have a coin flip app. Nice. So you want to call it, Dan? We'll start there. See who's gonna have the number one pick. You're gonna call tails. I'm flipping. And it's heads. If that's picking up. There we go, it's heads. Kind of see it there. So that puts me on the clock. I think you had the number one pick last time. Did this for Voyager Season 3. That kind of works out. Yeah. I am going to go, like I said at the beginning, we talked we're going to go 7 rounds. So keep that in mind. Anybody, I see Jeff's out there in the chat. Feel free, share your choices if you agree, you disagree. Love to hear all that from anybody out there who might be watching. But I'm going to go with the easy one. I'm going to take Wage Douche for my number one choice here. That's the second to last episode of season 2. That's Klingon for 3 ships. We have 3 sets of lower deckers, our own on the Cerritos, a Vulcan ship and a Klingon ship, all kind of coalescing into a single story over the course of 25 minutes here. We've talked a little bit about this over the last couple of months. I think we've done some topics where this has come up in various ways. I think rewatch recaps for me. I feel like I've talked about it, but the amount of work that this does to establish new characters in 25 minutes, the young Klingon officer, the young Vulcan who is rebellious in Vulcan ways, are really tremendously written characters who bring a lot to the table, and I hope we see more of. And it's just really innovative and different, and feels fresh and exciting, and very, very rewatchable because of all that stuff, how busy it is, how much there is packed into it. Just one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek. It was in my top 100 at the end of Rewatch 3.0. So definitely go there.
Yeah, a really good pick, really good episode. Really enjoyed it when it came out. I think the only time I've seen it again, I think we watched it maybe for Trek After Dark.
I think we did.
That, but yeah, it still is really good. Yeah, agree with everything you said.
Yeah. Where are you going for your number one?
I'm gonna go season 1. I'm gonna go another second to last episode season. I'm gonna go with Crisis Point.
It's a great choice.
Crisis Point to me is a really good episode. It made me realize that this is not just gonna be a funny animated show. It goes to some really deep and I don't know, explore some deep things in the characters. I really enjoy like the movie aspect of it.
Sure.
And I don't know. It's just really good, and I think just looking at these 2 picks, I think Lower Decks really starts to hit its stride. Maybe past that halfway point. So, yeah, it's a really good episode. Really care about the characters, and I really enjoy the use of the holodeck here. I think that we talked about this before, but there are effects to deep space travel and working in deep space, so I just love that things get worked out in the holodeck. So good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that Lower Decks, this like animated comedy show, gives us arguably maybe a top 2 or 3 episode about like the holodeck and how it could be used and its ups and downs and like therapeutics, like the therapeutic use of the holodeck. I remember seeing it for the first time, and like you kind of said, seeing Mariner like literally fight herself on the holodeck and how that brings about all her inner struggles and stuff. Like it's pretty heavy stuff, done comedically and done in this animated show, but it really carries a lot of weight, and it's great. It's a great episode. I think it's funny that episode 9 of both seasons are kind of consistently cited as like the best of the show. So I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna keep it up with the back end of the season. I'm gonna take the finale of season 2, First Contact. This has a lot going on in it. The captain, Sonia Gomez, the USS, I think it's the Vancouver, is on a mission and has a disaster hit it, and the Cerritos has to go rescue this other ship, and it's got some great like big Star Trek stuff. It has to shed its outer hull. That's something we've never seen before. Strips the ship down to its barest bones because of this sort of natural anomalous thing that they're having to go through to get to the other ship. The hull is a problem, so they have to literally like let it go. We see Cetacean Ops, which we talked about a couple weeks ago on our uh, unseen and implied sets. It's sort of a classic throwback to like the original of that idea from the Enterprise D and the Next Generation. We actually see it. We see who mans the cetacean ops, and there's real high stakes here. I mean, they're just kind of like season one's finale as well. There's real danger to the Cerritos' crew, and I love the way that it sort of culminates in the lower deckers and the bridge crew all having to kind of work together to solve the problem. They're all kind of intermingled and working together, and it's a kind of one of those things that a lot of the shows have. Like there are these moments where the tension's high and there's high stakes that make me realize like I've really come to love these characters, and they feel like a family. And the end of season two, I feel like that really starts to jive. And you get a great cliffhanger too, with Captain Freeman
Yeah.
being dragged off, and that's gonna, I'm sure, play pretty heavily into this week's episode, beginning of season 3. So,
Which is crazy to say.
yeah,
Awesome. Yeah, great pick. Really like that episode. Yeah, again, it's just like everybody has something to do. It just They just feel really like a crew. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
agreed. What do you got? Round 2.
My next pick, round 2, I'm gonna go season 2, episode 5, An Embarrassment of Duplers. I
So good.
really like this episode. The fact that you get the camaraderie of the crew, I think that it's, I don't know, everybody's trying to get to the top, but sometimes it's just nice to be able to enjoy being a second tier Starfleet ship, and the benefits of that comes. I think my favorite part is kind of at the end when they go to the dive bar that
Yes.
has like Kirk and Spock carved into it. I just feel like that's just feels like a really good friendship moment for those two, and I don't know the rest of the crew that's there, but yeah, I love that end scene. Yeah, really good. Had to pick it.
I do too. I think that's the highlight there for me too, and the really good, the way Lower Decks incorporates its own sort of specific brand of like life lesson kinds of things. Like, it's they're classic Star Trek kinds of things, but they're kind of specific to Lower Decks. Like there's something specifically Lower Decks to the idea of kind of having an episode about, because I guess it's coming from the perspective of Lower Deckers. It opens the door for this. Like you have these people who are really into the idea of getting to like the cool kid party and can't get in.
Yeah.
And it's not even the Lower Deckers. It's the Cerritos is such like a lower class ship that even the captain can't get into this event. That it's like for certain classes of ship only. It's like this exclusive party, and the sort of lesson is like you can have just as much fun by going to the little dive bar with your friends and make your own memories and do it your way, as opposed to forcing your way into something that's not you. And it's good stuff. I mean, that's like a real valid thing that people need to be reminded of, and it's a good life lesson, and it's done in a way that Star Trek kind of always does it. And it's great, and Duplers are funny too.
Yeah, the grass isn't always greener
Yep.
at the cool kids party, right?
Absolutely.
It's always just, yeah.
Yep, definitely true. So that would have been high up on my list and would have been an early pick. I'm gonna go with. I think I'm gonna take the other finale, season 1, No Small Parts. I love the way that the somebody pointed this out when season 2's finale happened. Season 1's finale ends with the Cerritos having to be rescued by the Titan in a real crisis. Like this, the Cerritos is giving the Pakleds everything they have, but they need an assist from Captain Riker and the Titan. In First Contact, the Cerritos crew is the one that's coming to the rescue in a kind of similar situation, and I love the way that those two finales kind of flip the script on that whole thing, and how that kind of tells the story for the ship and the crew kind of coming a long way over the course of that year, that they can be the one coming to the rescue later. But in season 1, again, big stakes. Shax's death gets kind of rewritten and undone early in season 2, but being left at the end of season 1 with like the loss of a major character and that he sacrifices himself in a big battle as a security officer, and is very in character for him based on what we saw of him in the first season, that he would do something like that and sacrifices himself for Rutherford, one of our kind of main characters. It feels really big and important. Obviously the heroic intro of the Titan and Riker and Troy is a big moment. I love both of the season finales of Lower Decks for the way that they work together and their own individual assets. No Small Parts also has the really great cold open of them going to that planet from TOS, from the Return of the Archons, where Landru is.
Yeah, that might be my favorite part.
That's really great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's like
I love
that's
those.
one of the best jokes in the whole show, I think.
Yeah, I love those really deep cut jokes that only, I guess, like the true or people who have watched TOS,
Yeah,
like Star Trek fans would get.
absolutely.
So,
Yeah, those
Great
old
pick.
scientists, TOS. Yeah. Round 3. For you.
Round 3. I'm gonna keep it in season 2, I think. And I'm gonna do episode 8, I Excretus. I really like the structure of this episode where they kind of have to, prove themselves with, things going on in the episode. To me, Boimler just feels like a crewman that would just stay in there until he gets the perfect score. So I really love that. I feel like that's really true to his character.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just a great and fun kind of silly episode that I know I kind of bag on the Borg a lot, but I really thought this was a really funny episode and really lighthearted for kind of going into the back end of the season, I guess. But yeah, really good episode for me.
Yeah, it's a great one. It's the concept of it really plays right into Lower Decks' strengths. Having this trainer come on and use holographic simulations to test the crew, and the way that they can use that to bring back these old Star Trek tropes. The mirror universe makes a quick appearance. The naked time virus makes a quick appearance. Like, these things are being used as like the doomsday situations that could hit a crew and a ship, and a lot of inside jokes, a lot of Star Trek conscious continuity kinds of things loaded into this episode. But yeah, when I think of it, I really do. The thing that comes the most to mind for me is Boimler sticking with that Borg simulation and pushing all the way through to teaching the Borg Queen empathy, and trying, like, sticking with it as far as it possibly can, to the point of being assimilated himself is great. I love it. I think it's sure to be a classic, I think, with time, because of how much is packed into it with the continuity, porn, humor, I guess. So it's a great pick. Definitely would have been something I would have gone to pretty early here if it was hanging around. I'm gonna keep up the trend here with the last chunk of episodes from each season. I'm gonna take Veritas. I'm never quite sure how exactly to pronounce it. Veritas. I think it's Veritas. But this is the crew on trial kind of thing. The Lower Deckers are. I just remember this episode airing and feeling like this is like the most true to the concept of the show being delivered episode. Like, it's playing up on the idea that these Lower Deckers have no idea what's really happening on the bridge, and only have limited context for what missions they're on and what they're doing, and that's touched on certainly throughout the first season, and it happens from time to time. But this episode's all about that, and it's really all about, like, what's it like to be a Lower Decker, and it does a really nice job of giving each character their moment of the four Lower Deckers through their own, like, flashback, testimony within the structure of the birthday party trial. ends up being a birthday party on this weird alien planet, and they have unique missions, each of them, that they're talking about having been on, and they're weirdly disconnected and bizarre on their own, but when you get the whole story at the end, it's really kind of great. Um, I think it's a excellent episode of Lower Decks that's true to the concept of the show and delivers on all the best assets of the series as a whole. So, yeah.
Yeah, a really good pick. Yeah, it's curious to see how like a lot of our picks are, back end loaded.
Yeah, that's definitely been a consistency, I think, with the two seasons. The last 2 or 3 episodes are kind of balls to the wall. You know, the seem to be the highlights from my standpoint, at least. But this is where the drafts get interesting. We're getting into these middle rounds, late rounds, and the sort of undisputed classics are kind of off the board here. So it's going to come down to kind of personal preference, which ones kind of stick out in our memories, and what are we kind of latching onto. So, what are you thinking for round 4 for yourself?
I'm gonna break the mold and do. I mean, not really, but again, season 2. But I'm gonna go an earlier episode. I'm gonna do Kayshawn, his eyes open.
Yeah. Very good.
I think my favorite thing about this, I mean, there's some great, Star Trek continuity stuff and some great jokes about that, but I like, and this is maybe just a maybe overall thought, but Boimler on the Titan, like I like that it's not like an immediately a great fit. He's not like this turns into this great heroic, guy. He's still true to himself. He's still kind of spazzy and scared and all these things. So it's not like a perfect fit. It's not all these. It goes 100% how he expected. So I just love that they went that way. It's just beautifully written. But yeah, just that in combination with some of the Star Trek continuity stuff with the stuff in this episode, it just makes it for I had to pick it. So
it's another one that really it really jams in the Easter eggs and the references with the collector ship, and just opening the door to having so many deep cut things kind of thrown into the animation, either directly or indirectly referenced. Sometimes they're just walking by something and you see it. Sometimes they're referencing it and dealing with it. But there's tons of that. I love the Boimler stuff for sure. There's he gives that great speech when they're on the away mission. He talks about maybe it's better for him to like. There's a side to Starfleet that's just kind of chill and living on a ship and exploring and hanging out, and not everything has to be so serialized and serious all the time, and not everything has to have a giant threat, and the sort of meta comparison of that life on the Titan's kind of like Discovery and Picard. It's like big stakes all the time, and there's always something big going on, and he is more comfortable back on the Cerritos, living that more TNG episode to episode laid back life, and I think that's really well written, and it's like not. I love it so much because it's like it's true, but it's not too jaded edge. It's not throwing too many like. It's not. I never come away feeling like it's insulting Discovery and it's insulting Picard and it's insulting that kind of. It's like that's part of it. That's something that's out there, but that's not for me. And to me, like that's kind of the attitude I wish people who don't care for Picard and Discovery would like, instead of going on Twitter and screaming and yelling and being divisive and insulting people who do like it, you just say, hey, it's not for me, and stick with what you love, and that's what Boimler does, and I think we'd all be happier, healthier people if that's the approach we took when there's things out there that we don't always dig.
Things in our lives.
Yeah, exactly.
Typical Star Trek fashion.
Yes. Yep. It's meta. It's real life too. I mean, it's kind of touches all the bases. Really good episode. And it introduces Kayshawn, who's awesome, to the Temerian Darmok alien security officer, who I hope we get more of in season 3. I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna go early season one. I love Envoys, the second episode of the series. I think that was the moment for me that I was kind of sold on the show. I definitely prefer it to the pilot, as a sort of, at least for my money, like it's I feel like that's more aimed at me and my humor and the the kind of Star Trek show that I was hoping Lower Decks would be. That was my sort of settling into, I'm gonna like this, and it pretty much hasn't really looked back from there. Again, kind of like Keishan, it's kind of a similar idea. Keishan, they go to a collector ship on in Envoys. They go to sort of like the Epcot of the Federation, where there's different pavilions of like embassies for these different alien species that you can kind of move back and forth from. You can go to the Andorian one, you can go to the Klingon one, you can go to the Ferengi one, and through that you get all these references and all the Star Trek goodies. But it's got a story too. It's not just, hanging Christmas ornaments on a tree of references that don't kind of connect. It's telling a story about the difference between Mariner and Boimler and how they see themselves and where they see themselves in their careers, and what kind of officers they want to be, and that they kind of need each other the way that so many pairs of Starfleet characters, Star Trek characters, kind of do. They're yin and yang, and they're better with each other than without. Um, so that kind of set the standard for me, that it can be a comedy, it can be a silly approach to Star Trek, but it can that they're Star Trek stories at the same time.
Yeah, it's almost like a little bit of an intro because
It is, yeah.
I like the B plot as well with like Rutherford
Yes.
exploring the different um,
Career tracks.
jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that just helps like people who haven't seen Star Trek kind of get solidified and like, oh, okay, this is what this branch does. This is what that branch does. I really enjoy that.
That's a great point.
Yeah, and then just like them going to the planet too, like you get like an intro into a lot of the major players in Star Trek culture and the different species in there. So I always thought this was, which was weird, is it always felt like it was almost a better intro than the pilot.
Pilot.
Yeah.
It kind of is. I mean, the pilot definitely sets the tone for the kind of Star Trek it's going to be. That it's going to be fast and rapid fire and funny, and it's a comedy, and it certainly establishes, it does all the intro stuff where certain characters are coming to the ship for the first time and meeting each other for the first time, and it gets our feet under us, I guess. But Envoys is the one that I think does the most work for giving the characters room to breathe, I think, and introducing us to like the kind of people that they are, what makes them tick, and I don't know. I just always feel like because it's a pilot and it's 25 minutes long, Second Contact feels like it's so jam packed and it's trying to do so many things that Envoys, in comparison, feels like it's kind of wide open. Like it feels like there's room to breathe in it. It doesn't feel like it's too rapid, too quick, and it feels just more of like a comfortable, like settling into, the concept and the world of the show, opportunity. So I agree. I think it's the better. You need them both, I think, because of, it is what it is. But it's the better episode, I think, of the two for sure, as an intro. What about you for your round 5?
I'm trying to decide between two very different episodes. I'm gonna go again. Season 2,
Okay.
episode 3. We'll always have Tom Paris. I I was worried about how much, with this being like more of a, it's easier for actors of the past to be able to come and make cameos and things like that. I worried we were gonna have too much on our plate with things like that, but I think this was kind of well done with having just a little taste of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had to if there's any Voyager references, I feel like I have to scour these episodes to try to find some. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's my next pick.
I agree with you. I think they kind of perfectly tailor the Tom Paris stuff into it. It's not completely about that, even though it's in the title. This is one that has like three distinctive storylines. There's an A, B, and a C plot. One of them is Boimler wanting to meet Tom Paris, who's visiting the ship. He's got the plate, and that's kind of one thing. But the one that when I watch this episode again, that always stands out to me is the Mariner and Tendi away mission, and them realizing like how little they actually know each other, and it's kind of like a stand-in for working with somebody doesn't necessarily mean that you know them like personally. Having a work friendship or a work relationship with somebody is kind of like a different thing than an actual friendship, and that there's a barrier there that you have to kind of cross to really get that. And I think that's really cool. And the other one is the Rutherford. This is the episode that Shax comes back, and Rutherford is like, "Well, what happened?"
Him trying to figure out
Yeah.
how like he just goes down this rabbit hole, like the Voyager conspiracy. Yeah,
Mhm.
just, good.
Yeah, so I think the fact that the show did that, and it it made it just one of three stories, gave it. I think that was the right move for this. I think giving Tom Paris his moment and introducing like putting him in the show is obviously welcome, and it's awesome. But it especially this early in the series, still early season 2, making sure that the show is about these characters and the Cerritos, and you know giving them the room to kind of carry the day is still important, and I feel like they did that. Um, so I'm gonna go with a season 2 episode. I'm gonna go where pleasant fountains lie. This is the Jeffrey Combs guest appearance as the
Yep.
evil computer. It's another sort of Mariner Boimler away mission kind of episode. They're on a shuttle with this thing. It crashes, and I'll be honest. I remember watching this for the first time, and the twist got me. I remember feeling like while it was going that I wasn't into it. Like I felt like, oh, here we. It's kind of like the same old, same old. It's Boimler being super duty bound, and he's doing the Boimler thing, and Mariner's doing the Mariner thing, and I felt like this is kind of repetitive, and we've seen this before. It doesn't feel like characters moving forward enough, but that's consciously done. Like they're playing off of the computer. They're using their kind of obvious tendencies to fool the Jeffrey Combs evil computer, and I remember being like, wow, that's really smart, and they got me too. And it's also got the B plot with Billups, who's like a recurring secondary character, the engineer on the ship. We get to meet his home species, where he's from. We get to learn about his society, which is really unusual and R-rated. With his mother wants him what his mother wants him to do is pretty raunchy and pretty silly, but it really works. It's cool to see such a secondary recurring character get a moment, get like an actual story, and he's funny. Like, he's a good character, and I felt like that was a step forward for the show too. That it got to branch out, and kind of like the Next Generation would do with Barclay or Chief O'Brien. Like a character like that can kind of partially carry an episode. So I think both stories here work pretty well, but that twist is what really sells it for me and makes it a successful, strong episode. And it's great to hear Jeffrey Combs' voice again, of course.
Yeah, that's the highlight of the episode. That and the twist. Twist
Yeah.
definitely got me as well. Yeah. It's easy to get lulled by like, oh, this is gonna be another, but good pick.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Thanks. Round 6 for you.
I'm gonna jump to season 1.
I was gonna say you're really season 2.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Moist Vessel.
Okay. Good one.
I think this is a really good episode to demonstrate the relationship between Mariner and her mother, the captain, and then how that is going to work and transpire. And we get a lot of good stuff with, I think Mariner gets promoted, and
Yeah.
It's,
As a punishment.
as a punishment for disrespecting her mother. I guess
Mm-hmm.
the captain in front of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just think that it's a really good a look into the dynamic of those two characters and how it's gonna go,
Mm-hmm.
through the rest of the series. So,
Yeah,
I'll pick Moist Vessel.
it's a good one. There's a lot of funny stuff in that. With she gets promoted and she has to go to all these lame like senior officer events.
Picking the chairs.
She's do that. Yeah, she's got to go to staff meetings about what kind of furniture they're going to have. She's got to go play poker with the other seniors, and
Yeah.
she goes to a concert that's super lame, or a talent show or something. Like she's got to do all this stuff now, and all the reasons she doesn't want to be promoted are on display. And I love the humor of that. I think, like you said, it does a lot of establishing one of the core principles of the show with the relationship between Captain Freeman and her. Uh, and yeah, it's a good one. There's a really cool secondary character too who is obsessed with ascending. He's voiced by Haley Joel Osment from The Sixth Sense. So kind of a really cool guest star for Lower Decks, who Tendy's trying to befriend, and it's cool. There's like a generational ship that they're trying to tow, and things go awry. There's a lot of big ideas in it. It's a really good episode. And we're getting into this is the end. This is round 7, and I'll be honest, we are kind of into the thick of it. Some of the episodes that are left are not necessarily my favorites. There is one that I'm a reasonably solid thumbs up on, so I'm going to take it off the board, and it's Much Ado About Boimler. This is the Rutherford's playing with the transporter, trying to upgrade it, and accidentally sends Boimler out of phase, and he's going to be sent off to this Federation colony where people who have such things happen to them, who are deformed or the victims of technological failures, are all sent off to live happy lives and be taken care of.
Rehabilitation center.
Rehabilitation, yeah. Yep, kind of I guess Dagger of the Mind, which we both just watched. Kind of that's a penal colony, but it's same kind of idea. It's this place you're probably never going to leave, but the idea is for it to not be so bad. But they have fears on this transport ship that it's not such a good place that they're going, and they end up mutinying, and it's got some horror vibes to it. It's got a character from the animated series, Eric's. His species makes its return as the captain of this transport ship that peddles all these people from regular Federation space to this colony. So there's a lot of cool stuff in it. It's not like a necessarily personal favorite, but I remember getting to it and oh cool, Lower Decks can even do some pseudo horror stuff. It's embracing that kind of TNG episode, and there's a lot of good in it. I think it's I think that stuff works really well, and we learned some things about Boimler too. I think he kind of stands up for himself and gets put in a different kind of situation early in his character arc, and it's a good one. So, how are you going to finish this off? As we're kind of down into the stuff.
This is kind of tough because some of these I would maybe consider maybe middle of the road, or ones that I'm not that big of a fan.
Mm-hmm. It is tough. I mean, that's kind of the thing with Lower Decks is, I love this show, as I think the conversations that we're having here kind of demonstrate. But like any Star Trek series, some of these episodes they're fine. I just put out on Twitter my kind of letter grade key, what the different letter grades mean to me when I'm doing that kind of thing. And the episodes that are left are kind of in that C range, quite a few of them, which are perfectly fine. They're watchable Star Trek, but they're not necessarily ones I feel passionately about. And this is where it gets interesting with the fantasy draft. It's which one has something in it that you're kind of intrigued by and wouldn't mind watching again, or that you remember fondly. kind of my favorite part of the draft, actually, getting to this point, because it's not that easy. It's not just a matter of like, oh, pick the one I love.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with. Man, this is tough. Season 2, episode 6. Right, that's the
Spidey Mongus, Packlet Planet.
Yeah, the Packlet Planet. But they also don't they pick up? Aren't they on like trash duty or something like that?
Yeah, they're on.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite part of the the episode because there's some stuff with the Packlet stuff that I could take or leave. I feel like that stuff maybe at this point has been pretty well used up for my money, but I really like that whenever they have to do like really menial tasks,
Yeah.
like just like pick up the anomalies of the week at different places. I think that's such a funny little trope on Star Trek that doesn't get explored a lot. So like, what happens to these things at the end of the episode? I just really like that part of the episode. But yeah, so that's my last pick. Again, I would definitely agree with Bill. I don't usually do the letter grades, but yeah, these last 6 or so episodes, not my favorite, middle of the road, but I like that Lower Decks still has those A and B and sometimes C plot types of episode structures where you can find one that you like.
Yes.
Like this is like a perfect example. I don't really necessarily like the A or B plot, but
there might be something in there.
Trash. I like that.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and that's a definite hallmark of Lower Decks. Lower Decks does have the true A B plot of like that what becomes the comfortable structure of Berman era Star Trek, where you get like the A plot where there's the more high stakes science fiction idea, but the B plot's usually sometimes something that's kind of menial, kind of small, maybe a character subplot that's kind of woven into it. I've seen discussion on Twitter. I think Jim from Trek Ranks was talking about season 7 TNG episode called Force of Nature, where the B plot is really like literally like 15-20 minutes of Geordi and Data crawling around Jeffrey's tubes talking about Spot, like problems with the cat. And it's like super, super casual and like just about their friendship and real life stuff. Data's trying to train Spot, and Geordi doesn't think it's a trainable cat, and that's the B plot. Like
again, I think there's a beauty in that because
it
adds a sense of realism.
Yeah.
Where it's like not every episode is like
the world's coming
dire.
to an end.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's real. That's stuff that people talk about. Like if you go to a job and you have a friend at work, that's the kind of stuff you end up.
Yeah. How was your weekend?
Yeah.
Things like that. Like,
yeah. Cat was a pain. You know what? Like that's real. That's one of the beauties of that show is it captures that it's science fiction. It's 24th century. It's living on the starship, thousands of light years away, but they're people. It's a workplace drama when you bear it down. And I think Lower Decks. I remember saying this right out of the gate when Lower Decks kind of first got going after the first few episodes. Is like they really captured the TNG workplace.
Nailed it.
Drama comedy feel of it. Like a lot of the lessons are about that stuff, like being life in a job or with coworkers or living on that basis, and that stuff TNG really lived comfortably with and had brought a lot of value through that kind of storytelling. And Lower Decks, a lot of the best lessons of Lower Decks are kind of aimed at those same things, and having that structure that you were just talking about is what I think opens that door, like being able to do A, B, C plot. And doing smaller things that just let characters breathe and let those characteristics come to the surface. So that's it. I mean, we've got 7 episodes each, and we have 6 left over in our undrafted pool. When I look at, the one that is kind of the anomaly to me that I have towards the bottom of my list, but I do like it's because it's so distinctive. Is Bugatu Gamatu. Like that is such a unique, like, and it's so memorable. It's kind of like I'm not going to say it's like Spock's Brain. It's a better episode than Spock's Brain for me. Like it's definitely more successful than that.
Yeah.
But it's got that sort of like undeniable, memorable quality. Even if you don't love it, it's impossible to deny. Like that, as soon as you see the title, you're like, I know exactly what that is. and I can like kind of play it out in my head.
Yeah.
And there's just it's not just the meme of the one thing. That's a big thing, but it's so unique. So I probably wouldn't pick it next, but it's definitely the one when I look at those six that like pops out to me. That's like the most notable of them. Uh, I think there are decent things, like you said. If you really boil it down to A plot, B plot, C plot, like looking for little moments. There's things in all these episodes that are left that I would speak highly of. I think, um, but Gatsu Gamatsu might be the one that I'm drawn to because of how memorable it is.
Yeah. And that's the thing with Lower Decks is sometimes they do push that humor boundary just so far that it's just so out there that just it makes such an impact. Like I don't know. It also, at least for me, for my money, that episode, I feel like drums up a lot of talking points online, and so that gets people drawn back to the series. So I feel like there are some of those types of moments in some of these episodes. Like I Excretus, there's things like that just like make clips that are so out there that will just create buzz around the Twitter sphere that'll just get the Star Trek fandom going.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, definitely. Um, it's something on the tip of my tongue that I wanted to touch on too with that. But Jeff is hanging with us in the chat, talking about a lot of these episodes are high on his draft board. Episodes that he's really high on: Wage Douche, Crisis Point, Envoys, Cupid's Air and Arrow, which we didn't pick. That's the Boimler uses like the Starfleet dating app to meet a girl, and she comes to visit the ship. Season 1 episode, I Excretus, No Small Parts, Keishan. Really likes Second Contact, the pilot. So he cites a lot of episodes there that would kind of be on his radar if he was drafting with us. Appreciate that. And likes Much Ado. Pick the Naughty Boy Thoughts episode. Which one is that? I'm not sure which one you're. Quite a few of them are loaded with naughty thoughts.
Yeah.
But
definitely a few.
yeah. Oh, what I was going to say is like Mugatsu. We've touched on this too. The Swiss Army knife idea that we always talk about with Lower Decks. Some of it is they play with different genres, kind of like horror slash whatever that other slash is. But the brand of humor is variable. Like Mugatsu Gamatsu has a different kind of sense of humor than Wage Douche does, than An Embarrassment of Duplers does. Like the kind of humor that the episode leans into can change. And like Mugatsu Gamatsu is more of like an extreme slapstick, gross out kind of humor, and something like Wage Douche is more like subtle, like inside jokey, quiet humor.
Yeah.
It's and I love the fact that Lower Decks is comfortable enough in its own skin to be able to do that. It's not one thing. It's found ways, I think, to have that flexibility within the constructs of its own brand, with being a comedy and animated. And it's good. So I think that'll about do it for us. We got this done in about an hour. Sometimes these go really long, but sometimes they're bigger boards. We have more episodes to do. Sometimes we have more rounds. But this was a lot of fun. Definitely has me amped up for more Lower Decks this week. Really
Thursday,
glad it's
right?
back. Thursday. Yep. 25th. We kind of have this is the Lower Decks personality now is like it's always August. So Lower Decks football season kind of go hand in hand. The fall and that time of year kind of all kind of gelled together, happening all at once. So looking forward to it. I'm sure we'll find ways to weave it into our topics moving forward too. I'm sure touch on Lower Decks season 3 in the coming weeks as that season wraps up, and looking forward to all of it.
Yep. You guys know the drill. The discussion does not have to stop here. Come over to Twitter and Discord. The Discord is really fun. both Bill and I are going through rewatches. There was a little bit of discussion of some things that happens in some episodes.
Mhm.
There's some comparative screen grabs from the remastered TOS to the original TOS. Like there's something for everybody, not just TOS. There's literary stuff. There's all good content to be able to keep the discussion going. So definitely check that out.
Yeah, it's a cool opportunity to connect with fans on a more personal level. I think it's been a while since we've done a Trek After Dark, which we need to rectify, which is our best asset on that server when we do that to give people a chance to actually meet and talk to each other like we are right now on screen. But my favorite thing about our server is that it's not overly huge and it's kind of intimate, and it's a chance to be active if you want, or kind of just linger and see what people are talking about. We share what we're watching. Like you said, there's a literary channel, there's a gaming channel. They're not always super active, but if people want to talk and have back and forths about the new stuff, the old stuff, whatever, it's a good place to have a positive, welcoming group of people to chat with. Maybe a little bit more privately, more intimately than like the wide world of the internet on Twitter. So if you're interested in something like that, if you're a like-minded kind of fan who loves all of Star Trek, or at least is open-minded to it all, send me a DM on Twitter. I'll get you invited to the server, and you'll kind of have an inside track on when we do have our Trek After Dark hangouts, and have an opportunity to meet some cool people.
Yep.
All right.
So it looks like the internet had up.
Held up pretty good.
Was able to hold up, so that's a good thing. But I want to thank everybody for watching,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.